Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Ahsoka Season 1. In this video I will give my overall review of Season 1 of the Star Wars show Ahsoka. So I have to start with the spoiler warning for Ahsoka up to the very end of Season 1. If you have not seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video. Otherwise, some things will be spoiled for you. So, if you've watched my channel, you know my review on Andor. And in fact, when I reviewed Star Wars Andor, I called that, I said, is overrated, is in the title. I think it is one of the most overrated shows to ever be. In that same vein, I think Ahsoka is one of the most underrated shows, particularly when it comes to Star Wars. I think Ahsoka was far superior to Andor in every way. But it's funny because when I talked about Andor, one of my main issues with it is I thought it dragged out for too long. It was 12 episodes long, and I think it should have been 6 episodes long, and I would have liked it better if it wasn't. There was a lot of storylines that are pointless, and they should have AD6'd it. My slight issue that I have with Ahsoka is the opposite issue. It's 8 episodes long, and it should have been 12 episodes long, maybe 10 episodes long. So I was liking Ahsoka, I think, a lot better than most people. In fact, when I watched a lot of reviews for Ahsoka, they said, oh, it started out kind of dull and kind of boring, but it got better. I loved the beginning. I loved the first 2 episodes. The 3rd episode was really short. It was action-packed, but it was kind of just a link in a chain. There was nothing wrong with those link in a chain episodes. It was fine. But, of course, it really got good in episode 4 and 5, and that's when the show got amazing, and most people do agree with that, particularly with the episode 5 part. However, when we get into episodes 6, 7, and 8, I did like these episodes, but I actually find that most people tend to like those episodes more than me, because parts of it disappointed me. So to be clear, just to be clear, when I was watching the show, when it was up to episode 5, after episode 5 aired, I would have given the show a 10 out of 10 and said it was easily one of the best shows ever made. But then those last 3 episodes came, and they didn't suck, not by any means, but they didn't, to me, live up to the greatness this was the previous episodes. In particular, there were some moments that I thought should have paid off more than they did, particularly the reunion with Ezra Miller. I don't think that was quite as gratifying as I think it should have been. Also, it didn't seem to focus as much on the characters as the earlier episodes did, particularly episode 5. It seemed to be more concerned with having a bunch of action scenes that weren't quite as meaningful to me as the action scenes in episode 4. And, of course, my major issue, the biggest issue I have with the show overall, is that the season ended too early, which is why I say they should have 10 episodes or 12, because they should have had more time to flesh out the storyline in the other galaxy. They should have had more time to reunite with Ezra Miller and see the characters, more character moments. But the biggest thing is that Baylan's storyline didn't go anywhere. They were hinting at, throughout the season, Baylan having this stronger motivation having to do with power, and then in episode 6 they really strongly hinted at it, and he was talking to his apprentice Shin like, oh, you were made for a greater purpose, and I have this great purpose that's beyond all the silly things. And then in the very next episode he goes to Shin, it's like, you know what, you probably don't really want to go with me in the first place, you can go be with Thrawn, which seemed really out of place. So I was assuming coming into episode 8, well, we're going to focus on Baylan and figure out what the hell his big deal is and what is it that he's trying to focus, and we get him in about 10 seconds of the episode. And yeah, sure, they have him standing by the Mortis statue. If you've seen Clone Wars, or if you watched all these YouTube videos they give you hints and clues, and you're a nerd, a Star Wars nerd, and read on the background, like myself, you're going to recognize the Mortis statue. But that's bullshit. I don't care about vague symbols that if you're a deep Star Wars fan you're going to get, otherwise you're not. It's not going to mean anything. That is not what we should have gotten. We should have gotten an explicit explanation of what the hell Balin was looking for. Now, granted, we didn't need to entirely wrap up his storyline. They could have left some things open for a future season, but they left they at least needed to tell us what the hell he was looking for. And this is made even worse by the fact that the actor who portrayed him, Ray Stevenson, passed away. And so if they are going to follow up on this storyline, they really do need to recast. And I hope they are not shy to recast, because it seems like this is a storyline that can be abandoned or resolved by simply having him fall off a rock in between seasons. Now, I say in between seasons, as of the recording of this video, season 2 has not been confirmed yet. And if they don't do a season 2, then this would make me hate this ending even more, because this really needs a season 2. It's not good enough if they try to resolve this at another show that needs a season 2. And that's what bothers me. I wish the season was more self-contained. And I think had you had a longer season with 12 episodes, you could have done this self-contained. It's frustrating to me that Andor got 12 episodes when it really should have gotten 6, and this got 8 episodes when it really should have gotten 12. But, that's just my humble opinion. I know not everyone will agree with me on that one. But despite my issues with the last 3 episodes, as I said, they did not suck. They were still really good. I love the stuff they did with Thrawn, for example. Everything they did with Thrawn and the way they portrayed him was absolutely amazing. And there were some great character moments between Ahsoka and Sabine and the resolution to their storyline. So let me backtrack a bit and go through this season. Let's start with the first couple episodes when we have Ahsoka meet Sabine. And a lot of people's main complaints with this relationship is it was relying on a lot of information happen off screen in between shows, and I will agree that was a bit annoying, and I wish they hadn't have done that. But at the end of the season, they mentioned, Huyang talking to Ezra mentioned that Ahsoka started training Sabine, but then the Night of 1,000 Tears with Mandalore happened, and her family was killed, and then Ahsoka was worried that Sabine would turn to the dark side. This should have been information we had in episode 1. Because this also helps inform why Ahsoka was so worried about Sabine, why she kept her at arm's length. It also tied into the fact that Ahsoka was so, worried about herself and the influence that Anakin had on her. And this was something that was addressed beautifully in episode 5, and I wish this should have been mentioned at the very start. And I dare say, I think the season should have began with flashbacks to this Ahsoka and Sabine relationship. And had they done that, I think a lot of people would have been more okay with this happening, because I think this is something we needed to see on the screen, and especially the information about her worrying about Sabine turning to the dark side is something that we should have gotten in the first episode, not the last one. That is definitely a huge gaffe on the show's part. However, I will say a lot of people were complaining about Sabine. Oh, she has Force now. In fact, I was, watching this video, and they were talking about, Luke is related to Anakin, and Rey is related to Palpatine. So who is Sabine related to? And that's what bothers me. And that's actually something I really liked about The Last Jedi. I know it's a film not a lot of people like, but they implied anyone could become a Jedi, and I love that. So I am actually totally on board with Sabine becoming a Jedi, even though she's not Force sensitive. I think that more and reinforces the fact that anybody could learn to use the Force if they tried hard enough. And I love that aspect of it. It's not just a select few gifted individuals. We're not like geneticists or whatever, or Yeah, only picking the select few awesome people, and everyone else are to just be peasants and fuck off. That is, to me, that is not the kind of story I think Star Wars is, and I love the implication in The Last Jedi that anyone can use the Force, and that's what it's about. All you have to do is apply some discipline. So I'm perfectly okay with Sabine learning to use the Force. And I have no issue with that. And I think a lot of people are comparing the search for the map to Force Awakens when they were looking for. I didn't even think about that because I sort of blocked that movie out of my mind. But I don't even make that comparison. I don't think it's the same thing. I think it's a false comparison. Yes, you could say on a surface level the two storylines were kind of similar, but I think that it was actually much more interesting. And then I heard a lot of people complaining about the map. Oh, why is there a map for Ezra to find Thrawn if they disappeared by these Purgles? It doesn't make any sense. And I never had an issue with that. In fact, this was actually explained in the later half of the freaking season. Maybe if you just waited, they would have explained this. But I don't know. I never had an issue with that. Regardless, and I think it made perfect sense. I thought it had to do with the Purgle, but then it actually had more to do with the Night Sisters, and the fact that they were communicating with Morgan Elsbeth through distances and telling her where to find the map. So it all makes perfect sense, and if you just waited, you would have got an explanation. I was never on board with the complaints about that anyway, but so I liked the first two episodes. Yeah, they did kind of overdo the thing with Sabine, like being a badass and driving on the highway. I thought that was a little bit overboard, but I did like the Clancy Brown appearance. And I love seeing the Loth Cat. It was really cute and really awesome. Now, a lot of people complained about the fact that Sabine got skewered with the lightsaber and survived. A lot of people making comparison to, oh, well, don't tell Qui-Gon Jinn. He's going to be really pissed off. Qui-Gon Jinn was nowhere near a hospital, nowhere near help. He was trapped behind these force field thingies, and by the time Obi-Wan could get to him, it was far too late, whereas Ahsoka got to Sabine immediately after it happened. So I'm sorry, I do totally buy it, and I don't think it's the same thing, and it never bothered me, but that's just me. Other people can disagree with that, but I don't have an issue with this. And plus, this is something I talked about when I went on Darren's channel on these reviews to talk about a couple episodes of Ahsoka. Main characters in Star Wars have plot armor. That's just a fact of life, and one that I've grown completely used to that doesn't bother me at all. So I'm perfectly okay with this. It's just a part of Star Wars. I made the comparison when I was on that show to Game of Thrones because that was not okay, because Game of Thrones has firmly been established as a show where the characters do not have plot armor and any character can die at any time. But then all of a sudden in the last two seasons, every character had plot armor. Now that was bad storytelling because that was inconsistent. But with Star Wars, all our characters consistently have plot armor. So that is something you grow to expect. So it's okay in that instance. At least that's how I look at it. Now, as I said, episode 3 was pretty exciting. Oh, wait, before I get to episode 3, I have to talk about Hera and Chopper. Great seeing them again. And I like the sort of storyline at the shipyards. I thought that was really cool. Alright, so then episode 3 was pretty much a, spaceship battle episode. It was a bit short, but that didn't really bother me too much because, as I said, it was more of a link in a chain episode, and it wasn't boring. It was interesting, and it got us to where we needed to be, and it was a bit exciting to see all these space battles that are very reminiscent of Star Wars, so it felt very Star Wars-y. And then there's episode 4, which, as I mentioned, I think is an amazing episode. Absolutely blew me away. This was, I think, the best Star Wars I'd seen live action since the original trilogy. And I know that's a bit of a hyperbole, maybe, I don't know, but that's just really how I feel. This, along with episode 5, which I'll get to shortly, I think are maybe the best live action stories I've seen since the original trilogy. Now, granted, I'm not that huge on the prequels. I like Revenge of the Sith, so maybe I should revise it to say the best Star Wars I've seen since Revenge of the Sith. Definitely not as big on the prequels, or Rogue One is a bit overrated too. So, yeah, so alright, best live action Star Wars since Revenge of the Sith. Okay, I'll say that. But anyway, so this episode was amazing. It featured like really great Star Wars lightsaber battles, but more than that, and this is why I separated from the lightsaber battles in the final 3 episodes, because a lot of people were praising the fight with Ahsoka and Morgan Elspeth in the finale, but that to me was just all choreography, because there wasn't really any character, any motivation, any power behind why they're fighting, other than, hey, we gotta delay Ahsoka from getting on the ship. Whereas here, yeah, sure, the motivation of the villains was again to delay Ahsoka from getting the map, but still there was more meaning behind this. There was more meaning behind who Baylan and Shin are, and also the meaning behind the apprentice relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine, and how they, Yang was saying that they needed to stick together, and Sabine was willing to sort of sacrifice herself in order to allow Ahsoka to continue on with the mission. And you had some great moments within these fights, just as Sabine trying to use the Force, not being able to, and Shin sort of taunting her, but that she in fact uses that as a distraction to shoot her with some missiles from her wrist, which was an awesome moment. It had these great moments in the battle itself, and then of course the battle of Ahsoka and Baylan was even more awesome, and how Baylan was, I think he was almost maybe could read her mind and tell that she feels guilty over Anakin and who he became, and sort of using this to taunt her. And the fight itself was just amazing. So it was really, really powerful. And of course, there was that Myrick character who turned out just to be Smoke. A lot of people had these theories that it was Ezra. I hated those theories. I thought they were dumb, and or that it was some character from a video game or something, which I didn't care about. So I was actually kind of delighted when it turned out just to be Smoke Monster. I thought that was cool. But anyway, yeah, and so then we get the moment where Ahsoka, tries to grab the map, but that injures her and allows Baylan to defeat her. And again, falls off a cliff. A lot of people had issues with this. Plot armor, people. All Star Wars characters have plot armor. I'm made my peace with that. I am perfectly okay with that. I mean, she's the title character of the freaking show. She's gonna die in episode 5. Come on, or 4. Really? But anyway, and it's the same with the Lord of the Rings. How many times did Aragorn fall off a cliff and survive? But anyway, so that stuff that doesn't bother me, but it was a great moment, and the moment where Sabine actually turned and gave in to Baylan, who knew exactly how to push her buttons. This was amazing character moments. This is amazing storytelling. It was a very effective dark ending to the show, and Hera shows up with her rebel fleet. And they try to stop them from leaving, but they're unsuccessful, and they go ahead and leave and go to the other galaxy. It was a really, really powerful ending. So then we get into the next episode. Again, this is an amazing episode, maybe my favorite of the season, that deals with Ahsoka in the world between worlds. Maybe, they never confirmed this, but it sure looks like it, and she's talking to Anakin, and then she has these sort of experiencing, Anakin saying that he has lessons to teach her. Now, is this really Anakin, or is this just a vision of Anakin? I don't think it actually particularly matters. The point is that she learns, to be at peace with the fact that that Anakin was her master, and that learns that she needs to decide, make the decision to live and move beyond this. And we get like amazing flashback scenes with Ahsoka as a child that correspond to the Clone Wars. We get, and I think they use amazing imagery here, like with Anakin flashing to the Darth Vader costume every once in a while to imply the guilt that Ahsoka feels about the fact that he became Darth Vader, and eventually she confronts him straight on, and when she brings it up, he starts to act more like Darth Vader, sort of reflecting her own guilt over it, until she finally learns to come at peace with this and learn to appreciate Anakin for the person that he was, and not feel guilt over the fact that he became Darth Vader, and actually choose life. And then she becomes more sort of enlightened after this experience, and more at peace, and like a totally different character. And I love that. I think there was such a great character exploration. And at the same time, in this episode, we had Jason, Hera's son, who is force sensitive, like picking up on stuff like this and leading the search for him. And we had that moment, and the music, I gotta say, throughout the whole show, but in this episode in particular, is fucking amazing. Love this music. And they even did a callback to the classic Star Wars Force theme when Jason was sensing her. That was absolutely amazing. And then and then we get there, they've discovered to use the Purgle to try to go to the other galaxy. And you had the moment where Ahsoka like gets on top of the ship and like force communicates with the Purgle. It's amazing. It was a very touching moment. I think this episode is a masterpiece, quite frankly. And so then, as I said, we get the next 3 episodes. The next episode doesn't really feature Ahsoka at all, just like a little bit at the start, which is a little bit disappointing, but they need to show Sabine, of course, and the others. We get to the galaxy before her, and they show up, and they introduce the Night Sisters, and have Sabine go off and try to find Ezra, and she does, and they reunite. As I said, I think this reunion could have been more powerful. And I love the way they portray Thrawn, as I mentioned, so that was great. And then episode 7, it was somewhat exciting, but as I said, to me, it wasn't quite as great as episode 4. It was cool seeing Ahsoka trying to get to Sabine to help, and it was also really great, the portrayal of Thrawn and how he did not underestimate Ahsoka for a single second. This was a really great, and that's really true to his character, that he is very thoughtful and wants to understand his enemy in order to defeat them. And he himself even admits that, I think it was the next episode, but he admits that overconfidence is what allowed Ezra to defeat him, and he wasn't going to make that mistake again, which is super smart, especially when he learned that Anakin was her mentor, or that made him appreciate her and be wary of her even more. And so rather than sending ships off in a wild goose chase to chase after her, he just waited for her to come to him, which again is great strategy. And so it makes Thrawn like one of the best villains, which is of course very consistent with how he was portrayed in Rebels, which was absolutely amazing. So that aspect was cool. Seeing the little turtle-like creatures, the naughty or whatever they're called, I don't really care much about that. That was kind of silly. You have Sabine talking to her wolf or whatever. That was okay. I think that was the previous episode. But anyway, getting to the final episode, as I talked about, too much was left open, which bothered me. We did get some cool fight scenes. The zombies were particularly scary, and it was really suspenseful. Would they make it? And I actually think, even though I think the moment of Sabine actually being able to use the Force may be a bit contrived because she couldn't do it a couple episodes ago, now all of a sudden she can. but at the same time, I still found it very satisfying, very powerful get up and cheer moment where she was actually able to push Ezra to the ship and he got to go home, whereas Sabine and Ahsoka had to be stuck in the other galaxy. And of course, Sabine chose to stay behind, where she could have tried to go as well, but she chose to help Ahsoka because she knew Ahsoka was in trouble, which was a very great moment. And then one of my favorite moments is when Thrawn was sort of communicating to Ahsoka right before leaving, and I think he was really communicating, he was being sincere in how much he admired Ahsoka and how, sort of praising her, but at the same time saying, well, I defeated you because that's what I needed to do. And that was a great moment. And then the way the episode concludes with Ahsoka sort of telling Sabine that she's changed after her near-death experience, and when Sabine tells Ahsoka that Ahsoka tells Sabine that she knows that Sabine sort of gave in to Baylan, gave him the map in order to get there, and Sabine expects Ahsoka to be pissed off about it, but she's not, because she's at peace with it, and she was like, look, I am always going to stand by your side just in the same way my master did for me. And that was a powerful moment. And she makes it clear that she has total faith in Sabine and she's going to support her throughout. And that she even says at the end of the episode we were where we need to be, because, of course, they're going to hint at training her up while they're in this other galaxy. And then we see Anakin's Force Ghost, which was amazing, which was really nice conclusion to this show. So, addressing the complaints that this is Rebels Season 5, and that if you haven't seen Rebels or Clone Wars, this show is alienating and makes zero sense. I have seen Clone Wars and Rebels. In fact, I've seen it recently, so it's still fresh in my mind, so I'm a little bit biased on this. But comparing it really to other shows and other stuff that I've seen, I don't think that's a valid complaint. Like, will you get a lot more out of this show if you have seen Rebels and Clone Wars? Yeah, yes you would. Will you completely not be able to understand and follow this show if you haven't seen those shows? No, I totally do not agree with that. You will miss a lot of references. Some of the characters and some of the meaning and some of the references won't have as much power if you have seen those other shows, but you can it's still fairly self-contained, and it does explain its plot and explains everything as if, and there are directions they could have went to, trust me, if they wanted to lean very heavily on fan references and sort of assume that you've seen these shows. They could have done that, but I don't think they did. In fact, I think they went out of their way to make this more accessible for those who haven't seen that show. But I get you, it might not have as much meaning or as much power had you not seen those shows. So that I do get, but I still think it really pretty much stands on its own. So, my rating for Ahsoka Season 1 as a whole, I'm going to give this a 9 excellent. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I would have given this a 10 had the last 3 episodes really hit the landing a bit more, but those last 3 episodes weren't terrible. As I said, they just left too much open, and as I said, I think the show would have been better had they had more episodes, had they done more to flesh it out. And there's some slight things that maybe bothered me, like having the Ahsoka and Sabine background occur off screen and not even mention it until the specifics about it until the finale. That does bother me, and of course, not concluding Baylan's storyline bothers me a lot, and there's other things here and there, but with the strength of episodes 4 and 5 alone, I gotta give this at least a 9, because those episodes were just pure masterpieces, in my humble opinion. And I don't think that the last 3 episodes were anywhere. They were not at all bad enough to warrant me lowering it lower than a 9. As I said, they were actually still good. They just weren't maybe quite as good as the previous 5 episodes and didn't live up, especially those 4 and 5, didn't quite live up to that precedent, but they were still good. They were still exciting, still had some great character moments. So yes, 9 out of 10 for me for Ahsoka, and I think I would be as bold to say that this is the best live-action Star Wars season so far. Better than all seasons of The Mandalorian, definitely better than the Book of Boba Fett, and I'm sorry, better than Andor. Very. Anyway, that is it for my review of Ahsoka Season 1. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy my content, you can check out my channel as I continue to cover Star Trek and covering Star Trek Lower Decks at the moment, and retro reviews of Star Trek Next Generation. So please be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.